Fort McCall did not greet her, not with a nod, not with a glance. And certainly not with respect. Captain Ava Ryland stepped from the barracks into a morning soaked in silence. Diesel fumes lingered in the humidity. Frost crackled beneath her boots. Her regulation braid was cinched tight against her collar, her gloves pulled high, eyes already scanning the flight line as if expecting resistance. It came, but not from above. 3 lieutenants stood near the supply truck, laughing with the casual cruelty of men who had never been tested. One nudged the other, gesturing with his chin. "She's the one from the tribunal." "You know, that Ryland." The others looked her way, smirked, then turned back toward their coffee, as if she were a rumor passing through formation, as if the citation tucked in her file, the one no one dared to mention, was just a bureaucratic accident. Her uniform bore no ribbons, no unit insignia on the chest, just the ghost of a patch on her left shoulder. Faded stitching, pale green thread, once the mark of a Night Stalker unit that did not officially exist. Now just a shadow of memory sewn into standard issue. She adjusted her collar. The wind tugged at the hem of her jacket. Inside Hangar 18, the doors yawned open, swallowing shadow and steam. The UH-60, designation Hawk 109, sat beneath overhead lights, black paint dulled by sandstorms, its belly scarred from landings in places the Pentagon denied ever reaching. It looked wounded, waiting, and no one touched it. She stepped inside, her breath clouding in the cold. Master Sergeant Hodge emerged from under the fuselage, a wrench in one hand and oil streaking his brow. He had 30 years of flight line written into the arch of his spine. When he saw her, he nodded but did not speak. She understood. This base respected silence more than speech. He handed her the clipboard without making eye contact. "Birds prepped. Command wants a live altitude run. Weather's closing in." She flipped through the maintenance log. Last inspection, 92 days prior. Tail rotor servo flagged yellow. Monitor status only, not replaced. Her thumb paused. Colonel Derek Marshall. His signature pressed so hard it had cut the paper. "Why the rush?" she asked, not looking up. Hodge shifted his weight. "PR flyby, Congressional Staffers Tour. They want this one in the air for comms footage before it gets moved to static display." Her hand tightened on the clipboard. "Fuel her to 70%, no passengers." He blinked. "The docket lists a medevac sim. Not today." Her voice left no room. She turned away, ducked under the cargo ramp, and entered the cockpit. The smell hit her first, faint citrus masking the tang of hydraulic solvent. Too clean, too fresh. She scanned the console. Switches glinted, new fittings under the dash. Software booted 1/10 of a second slower than regulation allowed. Fault logger delayed by precisely the same lag. Her thumb tapped the trim diagnostics again. Same result. The sensors had been tampered with. Not disabled, just dulled. Just enough to pass. She did not speak. Not when her co-pilot Reyes arrived, nervous and silent, gloves trembling as he buckled in. Not when Tower cleared Hawk 109 for runway 26. Not when the rotors engaged and the noise swallowed everything. At 100 feet, the machine hummed. At 400, it whined. At 700, it whispered. Then something shifted. She felt it, not in the gauges, not in the console, but in the pedals. A softness where resistance should have been. A breath of collapse beneath her left heel. She adjusted. Reyes blinked. "Ma'am?" "Turbulence," she lied. He nodded, unaware. 10 minutes in, the lights flickered. Once. Brief. Enough. Then the yaw kicked. And she knew. This was not system fatigue. This was not weather. This was sabotage. The descent was fast, controlled, intentional. The mountain ridge loomed to the left. Trees slashed the horizon in jagged silence. She cut fuel to engine 1, feathered the blades, dumped altitude with the precision of someone who had done this before. Reyes gripped the frame beside him. "We're falling." "No," she said. "We are landing." The skid struck frost-bitten dirt with a groan. Hydraulic fluid hissed. Steam lifted through the cracked vent under her seat. The silence after impact stretched longer than it should have. She unstrapped, crawled under the fuselage, and found it. A severed hose. Clean cut, marked with a lot code that did not exist in any regulation database. She bagged the part in silence. Then she waited. An hour later, the sky filled with rotors. Chinooks. Military police. CID. Colonel Marshall arrived in a Humvee, pale, voice raised. Her hand did not tremble when she handed him the hose. "Your signature almost killed us," she said. "No fury. Just fact." And that was when the general noticed her. Across the tarmac, past the yellow tape, past the disbelief, General Rassin stood behind a tinted Humvee window, his hand frozen on the latch. His coffee untouched, his expression unreadable, his gaze locked on her shoulder. Not her face, not her rank, her shoulder. And the patch no one saw. The investigation started before the smoke cleared. Inside the debriefing room, everything was clean. Too clean. White walls, plastic chairs, a single projector casting flight telemetry in cold green lines. No names. Just numbers. Just failure. Captain Ava Ryland sat without being asked. She kept her gloves on. Opposite her, the base safety officer skimmed a printed log. His hands shook slightly. Not from fear, from the weight of what he was trying not to say. "You overrode 3 alerts," he said finally. "Yes. You cut fuel to engine 1 before the fault confirmed. I knew it would not confirm. The delay was artificial." He looked up. Her tone had not changed since she entered. Calm, clear, like wind over ice. Behind him, the CID agents watched. One wrote in a notebook, the other just listened. They did not interrupt, because they had read the same logs she had, and they had seen what she saw. A pattern of anomalies too consistent to be accidental. A maintenance log tampered the night before the flight. Digital scrub marks in the flight control software. Sensor thresholds manually widened by someone with high-level access, someone with clearance. She handed over the evidence bag. Inside, the severed hose, the fake lot stamp, a solder bead untouched by time or wear. A photo of the tail rotor servo fitting, identical to one she flagged 6 months ago on a different airframe. That one never flew. This one nearly killed her. "Do you suspect sabotage?" the officer asked. Ava tilted her head. She did not blink. "I do not suspect it. I landed through it." The room went silent. She stood. "I will be in Hangar 18. If anyone else wants to know what was done to that aircraft, they can meet me beneath the tail boom." She walked out. The door did not slam. She did not need it to. Outside, the air had shifted. The clouds hung lower. Georgia humidity thickened with diesel and something else. Something like shame. At Hangar 18, the Hawk sat grounded, roped off with red tape, but she stepped over it. Master Sergeant Hodge waited near the toolbox. He did not speak either. They worked in silence. Unbolting the cowling, tracing every line of tubing by hand. By dusk, they had found 5 more discrepancies. 4 were software. 1 was physical, a misaligned bracket that would have snapped at altitude if torque spiked again. When the sun dipped behind the pine line, Ava climbed into the cockpit again. She did not start the engine. She just sat, one hand on the collective. One eye on the checklist folded in her lap. Not the standard issue. Her own. Written in pencil over 15 years of missions, breakdowns, and emergency landings. Written in the margin of manuals. Written in the muscle memory of pilots who knew better than to trust what lit up green when their gut screamed red. She flipped the page. Underlined near the top, never trust a quiet system. The wind outside picked up, rattling the side panel. She remembered the tribunal. The way the senior officer had leaned forward and asked, "Why did you take off when the diagnostics were clean?" And her answer, "Because clean is not the same as right." They had not liked that, but she had said it anyway, because she was not trying to survive the system. She was trying to teach it. That night, someone slid a folder under her barracks door. No note. No stamp. Just one phrase printed on the tab. Command Initiative Directive 744. Conditional Risk Waiver. Red level. Her pulse did not quicken. She already knew what it meant. Someone had signed off, not just on the flight, but on her. As the expendable. She opened the file. Inside was a printout of Colonel Marshall's override signature. And beneath it, a memo from General Racine. Only one line was underlined. She does not walk away from this. Ava closed the folder. Her jaw did not move. Her breath did not change. She reached for her pen and wrote one more line into her checklist. Sometimes the threat wears your uniform. Then she folded the page and placed it behind the visor in her flight helmet. Outside, the base lights buzzed to life one by one. Inside the hangar, she did not move, because the next time someone tried to silence her, they would have to do it louder than the truth. The orders came in silence. No briefing, no summons. Just a knock at 0700 and a second-class clerk handing her a sealed envelope. Inside, a single line. Report to Operations Room C, 0730 hours. Clearance active, no accompaniment. She had never heard anyone say it out loud. Room C. It was the kind of place everyone on base pretended not to know. The kind whispered about in the back of the motor pool. The kind they said only opened when something needed to disappear. She arrived 3 minutes early. The hallway was empty. Floors polished to the point of reflection. Fluorescence flickered with an electrical hum. The walls were unmarked. No unit designations, no mission boards, not even a clock. Only one door. Steel, unlabeled. Slightly ajar. She pushed it open. Inside, the air felt refrigerated. Artificial, sterile. A single long table dominated the room. No screens, no projectors, just one tablet face down and a man seated at the far end. He did not stand, he did not salute, he only gestured to the chair across from him. "Captain Ryland," he said. His voice carried weight, not the weight of rank, but of access. She sat. The chair made no sound. "I read the report," he began. "Yours, not the one command submitted." He flipped the tablet upright. A series of images flashed, overlays of Hawk 109's software logs, solder points, pressure variances, and finally, the photo of the severed hydraulic hose. "You flew through a failure curve designed to guarantee crash," he said. "No override protocol was supposed to survive those inputs." "I did not fly protocol," she replied. "I flew instinct." He nodded, as if confirming something pre-decided. "There is a debate happening in rooms like this one, Captain. One side says what you did makes you a liability, that your name now brings scrutiny. The other side says what you did proves you are the only kind of pilot who should still be flying." A pause. "And I think they are both wrong." Ava said nothing. He leaned forward. "We think you are necessary." He slid the tablet toward her. On the screen, a new file. Project Sever, Directive 11. Status: not cleared for operational release. Asset requested, Ryland, A. She tapped it open. Mission specs populated in silence. High altitude insertion, Arctic corridor, no support. No signal relay, no backup crew. The aircraft listed was a prototype Hawk 119, a craft rejected by procurement, then quietly reassigned. There were red flags on every line. Fuel stability, yaw drift. Instrument desync. She scrolled down to the final entry. Deployment approved via back-channel override. Pilot assumption, conditional, deniable, expendable. She looked up. You want me to fly a ghost? We want to see if the ghost flies at all. Her voice was calm, her stare flat. No press? No commendation, no extraction. Correct. If it fails? No record, no name, no recovery. She stood. I will need my own inspection time. No crew until I approve the airframe. You will have access. I choose my own co-pilot. No co-pilot, he said. Solo flight. That stopped her. Solo, into contested airspace. With an aircraft that had never cleared simulation. Her throat stayed still. Then she said, When? Wheels up in 48 hours. She walked out without another word. Not because she had made up her mind, but because she had never needed to. Some people need orders. She needed answers. Scene 2, Hangar 9, 0430 hours. It was still dark. Not night. Not morning. That in-between hour when bases sleep, but machines do not. The Hawk 119 sat like an unfinished sentence beneath the work lamps. Paint dull, no unit markings, no name. She approached it like a memory. Cautious, reverent, suspicious. Its profile was wrong. The tail fin was too sharp. The fuselage skin had a matte coating to scatter thermal lock. The blade pitch was offset, intentionally misaligned for higher instability at low altitudes. Whoever built it had not designed it for rescue. They had built it to disappear. Ava ran her fingers along the airframe. She touched the gear struts. She tested the hinge resistance. Every part was slightly off, not broken. Not dangerous, just enough to whisper, "This is not meant to survive." And still, she climbed in. Because she had flown worse. Because something inside her still believed flying was not about the machine. It was about the moment it failed. And whether you did not. Scene 3. The cadet who stayed silent. At 0500, she returned to her locker. Inside, a folded note. No envelope. Just 4 words handwritten. You were right. Always. No name. But she recognized the handwriting. Cadet Rachel Lauren, the same one who once called her a diversity pick in front of half the squadron. The same one who now stood in the back of every safety debrief, writing notes no one asked her to take. Ava stared at the note for a long moment. Then she folded it once, precisely, and tucked it behind the checklist in her helmet. That night, she wrote 3 new entries in her own inspection protocol. Silence is a form of witness. Respect never arrives. You fly toward it. No machine is more fragile than the trust they put in your failure. And just before she powered down the hangar lights, she whispered one final line aloud. Not for herself, for the bird. You and I. No one expects us to come back. Scene 1. 0440 hours. Tarmac Bravo, Fort McCall. The fog had not lifted. It clung low over the base like shame. At Hangar 9, the Hawk 119 waited, a silhouette in the pale floodlights, blades still, engines cold. It looked less like a helicopter and more like a question. One no one wanted answered. Captain Ava Ryland stood beside the nose. Helmet tucked under one arm, flight suit zipped to the throat, no nameplate. No insignia, just her presence. Around her, the mechanics moved without speaking. She had hand-picked them. 4 engineers from the flight line who owed her nothing but knew what it meant when someone flew through sabotage and returned. Each ran their checks without being told. Fuel line purge. Rotor clearance, battery reeky. No one saluted. No one asked why she was there. Because they had read the final report. Because they had seen the photographs from the wreckage of Hawk 109. Because they knew this was not a flight. It was a reckoning. Reyes arrived last, not as co-pilot, as witness. He stood 10 feet back, arms crossed, watching her like a man trying to remember something important he had once failed to say. "You sure about this?" he asked quietly. She turned once. "I am not here to be sure, I am here to be right." He nodded, said nothing else. Because that was enough. Scene 2, Hangar 9 office, 0512 hours. Inside the small glass-walled control room, 2 officers stood beside a secure console. One tapped out encrypted clearance codes. The other held a phone to his ear, voice clipped. "Yes, sir. Yes, I understand. She already lifted." A pause. "No, I did not approve." "But you signed the waiver. Black ink. 3 days ago." Another pause. Longer. "Yes, I'm aware of what the file says." He ended the call. Looked up at the other officer. He thought she would say no. The other man frowned. She did not. "No," he said. "She never does." Outside, the Hawk's rotors began to spin. First a whisper, then a roar. The ground crew stepped back. And the machine, the one everyone wanted mothballed, buried, forgotten, rose cleanly into the air like it had been waiting for her all along. Scene 3. In the sky. 0540 hours. Cloud cover thickened to the north. She sliced through it without hesitation. The instruments glowed too green. Perfect. Too perfect. Again. She watched the delay in calibration, the software hesitation between pressure readout and control feedback. It was familiar. Intentional lag. Designed to look invisible until it mattered most, but she knew now. She adjusted trim manually, bypassing the sensors. Cross-checked airspeed against rotor torque, not to confirm truth, but to confirm lie. This machine had been built on misdirection. She flew anyway. Because flying was not about certainty. It was about commitment. The headset crackled. Unlisted frequency. One voice. Low. Calm. Clipped. "Ryland." "This is Ghost Tower. You have entered unacknowledged airspace. State your vector." She responded without pause. "Vector 119. Operation Seaver. Clearance file uploaded at 0432. If you do not have it, your clearance is behind mine." A long silence. Then a single reply. "Understood." "Maintain heading." She smiled, not from pride, from recognition. The system had just blinked, and she was still flying. Final beat. 0602 hours. Somewhere over Sierra Mesa. She banked hard over a frozen ridgeline. A flash of heat bloom on infrared. 2 figures. Downed. Alive. She looped wide, flared hard. Touchdown in 30 seconds. And not one part of her doubted what came next. Because no one had authorized this rescue, because no one had expected her to come back. But someone was about to owe their life to a woman they once tried to erase. Scene 1. 0604 hours. Sierra Mesa Ridge, LZ, Echo 2. The skids kissed down hard. Not a landing. A decision. The Hawk's blades shrieked above the snow, kicking up a white storm that swallowed the ravine whole. Visibility dropped to 0. She kept her eyes on thermal. 2 heat signatures, 1 upright. one fading fast. Ava kept the turbine throttled, holding altitude just above a stall. Her voice calm through comms. Extraction window 90 seconds, move. In the cabin, two medtechs, hand-picked, silent, leapt into the storm. Figures vanished into snow and static. Then came the voice in her ear. Got both. One conscious, one unstable, taking fire. Gunfire cracked across the canyon. Not precision, a warning. They were being watched. She tapped rudder left, lifted slightly, rotated tail toward the heat signature of incoming rounds. The hawk flexed, tail yaw twitching from the offset wind shear. One bullet slapped the fuselage. Another punched through the aft panel. She adjusted pitch, dropped the bird low in a defensive crouch, blades only 6 feet above the snow. A maneuver not taught in manuals. Only in survival. 30 seconds, she called. The medics reappeared, half dragging one soldier, the other slung unconscious between them. Blood streaked their gloves. Reyes shouted over comms, "Too hot! You need to lift!" She did not answer. She waited until the second soldier was thrown aboard. Then, hatch slammed. Throttle full. The hawk screamed. Scene 2, 0610 hours. Climbing through sheer. The prototype did not like the speed. Not with a cracked panel. Not with weight imbalance. The yaw drift worsened. Rotor torque jumped. The snowstorm became claws against the canopy. Every alarm blinked, but none screamed. It was the silence that told her the system was lying again. She gritted her jaw and made the choice they never trained you for. Trust instinct over indicator. She cut auto trim. Adjusted torque manually. Throttle modulation by feel. The cockpit shook like fury, but it held. Behind her, someone groaned. The wounded soldier had come to. A voice choked in frost and blood. Ryland? She did not answer. She was busy flying a machine designed to fail with 2 lives strapped in behind her and no second chance. Scene 3, 0614 hours. Return vector, airspace red. The comms flickered. Another encrypted ping, this time a woman's voice, calm. Controlled. Captain Ryland, you are outside all cleared zones. Do you copy? I copy. Do you have survivors on board? Yes. Was this extraction authorized? No. Silence. Then, understood. Continue vector. Base will not intercept. She almost smiled, not because they let her through, but because they had to. Because she had the one thing more dangerous than evidence, proof of life. Final beat, 0620 hours, over Fort McCall airstrip. The hawk came in low. Too fast, trailing smoke. One landing skid was misaligned. Ava compensated, flaring hard. The aircraft screamed again, resisting. And then, touchdown. Hard, clean, final. The rotors slowed. Steam lifted from the engine ports. The crew chief pulled the hatch. 2 stretchers were wheeled out by medics in seconds. The soldiers, alive, battered. Bloody, breathing. Reyes reached up to help Ava down. She ignored his hand, climbed out alone. Her boots hit the tarmac. The wind caught her collar. The morning light hit her face. And behind her, the hawk, scarred, smoking, unsanctioned, stood like a monument to every system that failed to stop her. She said nothing, because there was nothing left to say. Only the truth. And the truth flew today. Scene 1, 0855 hours, Fort McCall Tribunal Room. The courtroom was already full. Pilots. Engineers. Cadets in pressed uniforms clutched notebooks like shields. No one spoke. The air buzzed with the silence that only precedes something irreversible. Captain Ava Ryland stood alone at the back. Not summoned. Not invited, but present. Because Major Lena Moira, the JAG officer overseeing the inquiry, had left a manila folder in Ava's locker that morning. Unsealed. No note. Just one phrase underlined. Command, Initiative, Directive. 744. Conditional Waiver Authority. A loophole. The very one used to justify sending her into the air with a sabotaged helicopter. She held the folder at her side like a weapon. The prosecutor began with dry protocol. Flight schedules, checklists, chain of command. But no one listened, because everyone was waiting for the part no one dared to put into writing. The part where someone tried to bury a pilot with a signature. The part where she refused to stay buried. Scene 2, 09:117 hours. The call. The defense rests, said the base-appointed attorney, sweat at his collar. And then, Major Moira rose. Calm, precise. I would like to call Captain Ava Ryland to the stand. Gasps rippled. The judge hesitated. She is not on the list. She has direct bearing on the waiver protocol in question. She holds physical evidence, uncontested and unrebutted. Moira held up the folder. The room stilled. The judge nodded once. Captain Ryland? Please approach. Ava did. Her boots made no sound. She sat without flinching. Moira opened. Captain, can you describe the condition of Hawk 109 prior to takeoff? No flight-worthy bird delays fault logs by 1.5 seconds, she said. No pilot ignores it, unless they are trained to. And did you ignore it? I documented it. The log was scrubbed after my signature. I recovered the manual override plug. Solder was fresh. Fabricated. And the flight? I rerouted the trim manually, cut engine 1, landed on a slope with yaw drift increasing by the second. If I had not dumped altitude when I did, what would have happened? A pause, then, we would not be having this hearing. Scene 3, 09:26 hours. The turn. She reached into her pocket, placed a clear evidence bag on the table. Inside, the severed hydraulic line. The part was installed after the inspection log was signed. She placed a second bag beside it, a data port chip half melted from heat, but intact. Sensor thresholds were throttled. Finally, she handed over the folder. Inside, communications between Colonel Marshall and General Racine. One message stood out. Dated 1 day before the flight. Get it done. She doesn't walk away from this. Silence. Then voices, then shouts. The judge slammed the gavel. But the truth had already landed. The prosecutor requested recess. The gallery stirred. Cadets stood, not clapping, not cheering. Just standing. Because when a pilot tells the truth after being thrown to the sky without a net, you listen. Final beat, 1001 hours. Courtyard outside the tribunal. Colonel Marshall was escorted out in cuffs. General Racine was not far behind. Ava stood under a pine tree near the edge of the quad. Moira joined her, folder still in hand. You did not have to come, she said. Ava replied, You did not have to call me. A beat. I read your original report. The one they buried. It was never written for them, Ava said. It was written so I would not forget. Moira nodded. You know what this means? Yes, Ava said. They will come back. But next time, they will be more careful. And you? Ava looked at the sky. Pale. Cold. Honest. I will fly anyway. Scene 1, 04:32 hours. Barracks office alone. The lights flickered above her. Old bulbs. No one had replaced them in months. Captain Ava Ryland sat at her desk, tablet glowing dimly. Outside, the snow drifted against the barracks windows like time refusing to move on. She had not slept. Not since the hearing. Not since the truth was spoken aloud in a room that once pretended she did not exist. The Black Hawk she flew, Hawk 119, was now undergoing full forensic teardown. The parts would never fly again. But the story already had. Command had issued no formal apology, no medals. No press release, just a quiet memo. Flight confirmed compromised, chain of command breached. Action under review. She had read it once, then deleted it, because she did not need their words. She remembered the flight. She remembered everything. The hum of the tail rotor as it bucked against sabotage. The snow stinging her face as she crouched under the fuselage, the look in Reyes's eyes when he realized what she had flown them through, and out of. Those were the real citations. Etched into her memory, branded into silence. Scene 2, 06:30 hours. Hangar 18, pre-dawn. She walked the tarmac before sunrise. Boots crunching frost. Hangar 18 stood like a tomb, locked, sealed, decommissioned. Inside was Hawk 109, stripped and roped off for evidence. She stood beside it, reached out once, gloved fingers grazing the cracked tail, not as farewell. As recognition. This bird had failed every standard test, but it had flown. And so had she. On the hangar door, someone had taped a sheet of notebook paper. Handwritten. Just one line. They gave her a broken bird. She flew it anyway. Ava stared at it. Then folded it, tucked it into her flight manual. She did not know who wrote it. But she knew who would need to read it someday. Scene 3, 07:15 hours, departure. She packed quietly. No one told her to leave. But the air had shifted. She was no longer a liability. She was a reminder. And the system had no place for reminders. As she zipped her duffel, a knock came at the door. Cadet Rachel Lauren stood there. No clipboard, no uniform jacket, just raw honesty in her eyes. "I heard you're being reassigned," she said. "I was never assigned to begin with," Ava replied. A pause. Then Rachel extended a folded piece of paper. Inside, a flight checklist. The real one. Not from the manual. Line by line, things only a pilot who had flown broken would understand. At the bottom, a signature. R. Lauren, Class 492. Ava looked up. Rachel met her eyes. "Teach us," she said. "Not the system's way, yours." Ava took the paper. Folded it, no smile, just a nod. Then she picked up her bag, slung it over one shoulder, and walked out into the snow. Not toward a future, toward responsibility. Final beat, 08:02 hours, perimeter gate. A black SUV waited near the exit, unmarked. Windows tinted. Same as before, same as always. The driver stepped out. No insignia, no introduction, only one line. "They're asking for you again." Ava paused. "I never stopped flying." The man nodded. "Then you'll want to see the next file." He handed her a secure tablet. Inside, a mission profile. Location redacted. Objective, classified recovery asset. Required, pilot with non-standard pattern resistance. That was their way of saying, she survives sabotage. She survives betrayal. She flies anyway. She got in the vehicle. The doors locked behind her. Outside, the snow kept falling. Inside, she opened the file and whispered what had become her creed. Trust nothing that shines. Fly toward what hurts. Scene 1, 05:30 hours, somewhere above the Utah Basin. The Hawk 119 was gone. requisitioned, modified, deployed, not under her name, not under any name. But it flew again, because she had made it fly. And now she sat at the edge of an abandoned runway in a state no one claimed, beside a machine no one would admit existed, watching stars disappear into the slow bleed of dawn. No uniform. No insignia, just a flight jacket worn through the elbows and a patch inside the lining. Faded, soft. The only piece she ever kept. Her first team, the one with no record, the one that taught her silence could be a weapon sharper than rank. She ran her fingers over the stitching, not in nostalgia, but in gratitude. Scene 2, 0812 hours, Washington, D.C., Sublevel 4. In a conference room far from the sky, a meeting was underway. 7 men. 1 woman, all in suits, all staring at a screen that displayed a list of mission codes, each marked either failed, MIA, or redacted. Except one. Sever 11, successful. No further detail, just 1 line beneath it. Pilot unknown, survivors, 2. Someone spoke. This is unsustainable. We cannot keep relying on an asset who rejects protocol. A pause, then a reply from the oldest man at the table. She is not an asset. He tapped the screen. She is the only proof left that this system can correct itself. Quietly. Another silence. Then agreement. No vote, just silence. The language of men who wanted to claim victory without acknowledging who delivered it. Scene 3. Euro 9:45 hours. Remote airfield hangar. The cadets were already there when she arrived. Not in formation. Not called. Just waiting. Word had spread. About the tribunal. About the sabotage. About the mission that was never assigned but somehow succeeded. And about the pilot who flew with no backup, no insurance, no reward, and returned. They did not salute when she stepped onto the tarmac. They stood, one by one, some with manuals, some with grease under their fingernails, all of them quiet. Not because they were afraid, because they understood. Ava walked past them. Not faster, not slower, just steady. She did not speak, but she saw something in their faces she had never seen before. Not fear. Not pity. Not awe. Recognition. They had stopped seeing her as the story. She had become the standard. Final beat. 10:21 hours. The note on the wall. Inside the maintenance shed, someone had taped a page next to the safety chart. It was not regulation, not printed, just handwritten. The checklist. Her checklist. The one that had saved lives. The one she wrote in silence in pencil between flights. Someone had copied it, line for line. At the bottom, in block letters, trust the gut that got you home. Ryland. She stared at it, for a long time, then nodded once. Not in approval, in recognition, because now her name was not in a file. It was in the room, on the wall. In the minds of every pilot who would one day be told they were not enough. They would remember her, not the hearings, not the sabotage, not the storm, but the woman who flew anyway.